Cheating ex gets screwed over. Been a bit of a wild 5 days, but I don't know where else to post this, so I'm assuming this is the right subreddit. I didn't carry out the revenge, but the man doing so did illegally, and a police report's been filed and everything. I'm more just getting joy out of her being betrayed and the inconvenience. 5 days ago I get out of the shower and look down on my phone, and see I have a random Facebook message from some guy I don't know. Little did I know this would turn my whole life upside down, as I have been dating this person for almost 2 years. This guy says, "Hi, I just found out about you, but I have to tell you something about your GF." He says they have been dating for 2 months. She's been over to see him for a week. She told me she was staying at her grandparents'. It's where she grew up. I got prof if message such as her telling him that I love you, I'm going to move in with you, and some pics that were of the naughty variety. She admitted to everything but said it was mistake, but I had to end the relationship and she moved out the next day. I've been getting message of regret the past couple of days that I've had to ignore, but the last message said the bloke had taken $600 out of her bank without her knowledge account to buy something online. Now she's made a report and is getting the money back, but I just thought it was funny that after all that she's lost me, him, and has tried to rip her off. Redditors reaction story 2 after. Redditor 1. Sucks that this happened, but I'm glad you found out. Op answer. Yeah, same. So is a good bloke for letting me know, but a bad bloke for stealing money, but also a good bloke because it gave me a laugh. Redditor 2. Our karma revenge would soak this up. Redditor 3. So when is the revenge happening? Dumping a cheater isn't revenge. This may be in the wrong sub. Op answer. The bloke she cheated on me with took $600 out of her account as his revenge to buy stuff. Story 2. Almost make me infertile. I'll ruin your relationships. A long time ago I was a young man in an all-boys secondary school. I was about 14 for any international readers, and my friends and I were regularly bullied by a large group of older guys. Being typically nerdy boys, we were prime candidates for bullying. The only saving grace was that we were quite a large group ourselves, so no one person was targeted more than any other. Unfortunately, that didn't matter as the bullying was brutal. On our school grounds there was a small cabin that belonged to the local Boy Scouts that we used to hang out around on our lunch break. One day we had a run-in with the bullies when they tried to steal our football. For daring to not hand it over, I was singled out for punishment, so I was grabbed by 4 of them, one each grabbing an arm and a leg, and carried round the corner to a small courtyard with a flagpole in the middle. After a few punches for struggling, I was swung backwards and forwards a few times before being swung legs apart and full force into the pole. Any attempts to describe how painful that was wouldn't do it justice. Thankfully, one of my friends had made a run for a teacher, and they were spotted coming towards the group by a lookout before they had chance to take another swing, and they dropped me a leg at it. I was carried to the school office nauseous and in tears, and my mum was called. She found me with an ice pack between my legs and ghoulies the size or oranges. As she was talking to the receptionist and teacher, my friends ran up to me and passed me a mobile phone. I was confused as I didn't own one, and it was at a time when they weren't nearly as common as they are now, and they didn't even have games on them yet. It was an early model Nokia with an LCD screen. I looked at my friend and asked whose it was. He told me one of the bullies had dropped it as they ran off, and he thought that I should have it as a small way of getting back at him. I took the phone and left with my mum. That evening I was in my bedroom feeling sorry for myself, and I'd forgotten about the phone in my blazer pocket until I heard it go off. I took it out and saw he'd received a text message from his girlfriend. This was before phones had sophisticated locks and the bully hadn't set a passcode. I had no idea which bully had owned the phone, but I had his name now at least. I decided to mess with him. I was off school the next day, but when I went back and I talked to my friends about it, and we came up with a plan. One of my friends with a mobile phone was going to message him pretending to be a guy he'd met recently, and we were going to make it look like he'd been having a relationship with him and meeting in secret. We carried on sending messages for the rest of the week, and I was also replying to his girlfriend, although I deliberately made my replies shorter and less intimate than they had been before I got hold of the phone. I'd arranged for my bully to meet his girlfriend in the local town that Saturday, but was planning to stand her up obviously, whilst simultaneously having my friend text the phone about ditching her to go over to his instead. I replied agreeing and said I'd tell her I couldn't make it. I didn't. I'd waited in town where we were supposed to meet and saw a girl walk up and wait for a bit. She then got out her phone and typed a text. The phone went off in my pocket. I left it alone. She waited a few more minutes and texted me again. This time I walked around the corner out of sight and messaged her back asking who this was. She flipped out and shouted at me for messing her around. I told her that I had found this phone on the floor of the bus station in that town, and if she knew the owner I'd come and give it to her so she could give it back to the owner if she was nearby. She told me where she was, and I waited 5 minutes before walking around the corner and looking around for her. Eventually through texting we found each other and I gave her the phone. She thanked me and we went out separate ways. On Monday I told my friends that we'd pulled it off and we just had to wait and see what happened. It wasn't long into the week when gossip started spreading through the school. The bully's girlfriend had read his messages, it seemed, and had dumped him for having a gay affair. On top of that, she'd done it by going to his house on Sunday and calling him out in front of his parents, who it turns out, were not fans of that sort of thing at all. When he needed, she pulled out the phone and read out message after message. His claims he lost it over a week ago were ignored and I was not suspected. In response, his parents pretty much disowned him and he was only saved by his uncle, who was a little more understanding. He lost contact with a lot of his friends as his uncle's house was a lot further away, so hanging out after school or at the weekend was almost impossible, and his preference for men was so well known by now that no girl seemed interested. As far as I know, his parents never took him back and he moved to London to go to university to escape his reputation at home. I had only expected to break him and his girlfriend up, but that was an unexpected bonus. I'd say it went too far, but having your nuts smashed off a flagpole tends to harden you to the plight of your bully. Redditor's reaction. Story 3 after. Redditor 1, ducking hell, even as a girl and without a detailed description. That assault was brutal. I enjoyed the ending though. Lost the girl, lost his mates, lost his family. Comprehensive vengeance. If only all those little assets had received similar punishment. Op answer. To be fair, the school did its best, but they were always fighting a losing battle. The bullying didn't actually stop for me until my last year there for reasons I'm not proud of. Redditor 2, I think this suits more in our pro-revenge. Op answer, I thought about it, but they seemed to quite picky about the revenge going above and beyond. I wasn't sure that it did, seeing as the crime was so bad for me at least, so I thought I'd try it out here first. Redditor 3, try to be regular, ended up being nuclear. Well played. Op answer, shame he had such essity parents. You don't see the homophobic stance as much nowadays in England. Story 3, Fiancée cheated and dumped me because I put all of my money into Bitcoin back in 2013. So, I was hanging out with a friend when the subject arrived at my ex-fiancée. Then I realized this history was too juicy to not be shared. So, back in the day, I started buying Bitcoin. I wasn't a serious buyer, I just thought it was a neat thing. I had just proposed to my ex, and things were pretty good. I started learning more about the whole concept of a decentralized currency, how modern banking is destroying the economy and government-produced currencies have been melting through the years. It just made so much sense, so I started seriously buying more. At first, my ex didn't mind. She used to make condescending comments about me buying Monopoly money, and how stupid it sounded. Things started to go sour when I told her all my savings were now in Bitcoin. She was livid, called me an immature, irresponsible man-child. How dare I put our future together in jeopardy buying stupid things? I tried to explain to her many times the concepts behind it and how a currency that is deflationary by default had to increase its value. She didn't bought any of it, always with condescending comments about my cognitive abilities. I reminded her that it were my savings on the line. I would never demand or ask for her to invest in something she wasn't comfortable with. She argued that it didn't matter, the money was mine. We were starting a future together and I had to consider our financial security before putting all my money in stupid things. We were never the same after that fight. After that, maybe a bit out of spite, I doubled down on Bitcoin. I sold my car and bought more. I was overweight and lost 25 pounds biking to work. We started to resent each other more day after day. About a year after the big fight, I discovered she was ducking a coworker of hers. A shoulder to cry on became a DK to ride on. After a nasty fight, she took the ring off, threw it at me, saying, I hope when you're bankrupt and alone you finally realize how stupid you are. She started dating the coworker not long after. Her family sided with her and all hate my guts. Those were tough times, the price kept going down. I doubted myself many times but I held on. Needless to say, my investment paid off. After the first surge, I sold some of it, made profit over my initial investment and kept some and then bought back when it hit 5K. I won't go into details about my finances, but let's just say I don't really have to worry about money anymore. My ex became just a distant memory after so much happened. Last week, I met an old friend that used to live abroad. He is a common friend of me and my ex. We had a good time catching up until the topic became my ex. Apparently, she married that coworker, had a couple of kids and was living the life she thought impossible with me. Good for her, I thought. Well, that was the case until her husband's business went under because of COVID and she found out about his affair with a 20-year-old sugar baby. Now they're amidst a nasty divorce procedure and financial trouble. I would be lying if I say I don't feel just a bit happy about her demise. It is the cherry on top of my whole story. It just makes it too juicy not to share. I'm thinking about sending her a Christmas card this year. Redditors' reactions. Redditor 1, skip the Christmas card and keep it classy. Living well is the best revenge and you're already doing it. Redditor 2, I mean, it is kinda dumb to invest all your savings in one thing. That's why people diversify. Redditor follow up, yeah, I can kinda see why she was upset. Even though it's not her money, it showed a side of him that was impulsive and irresponsible, which is concerning for someone you're going to spend the rest of your life with. That said, she still shouldn't have cheated. Glad it all worked out for Op, though. I've made some money myself in Bitcoin, so I'm not knocking it. I just wouldn't invest my entire savings in it or any other single investment. Redditor 3, I agree with what you said about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency and governmental currencies. However, I have to also agree with your ex-fiancée that putting all of your money into the same pool is kind of risky. It's basically an all or nothing gamble. That's not a bad thing if you are not risk averse. Your ex, however, apparently was rather risk averse, which made you two incompatible. It's for both of your benefit that this came out sooner rather than later after a wedding, with her getting half of your Bitcoin turnover. Redditor 4, I mean honestly I'm happy it turned out good for you, but I would have been devastated if my long-term partner invested 100% of his savings into one high-risk asset. Redditor 5, the best revenge you can get is forgetting she ever existed. Don't send her a Christmas card. That's just petty. You did something super risky and it paid off. You could very well be living in a crappy one-bedroom apartment and biking to your job at a dead-end minimum wage job right now too if things had panned out differently. Count your blessings and move on with your life. Redditor follow up, you did something super risky and it paid off. That's usually the way it works out. Big risk either pays off really well, or you lose pretty much the lot. Rarely is there an in-between state. It takes a certain personality and that's not me. But my current CEO is, and he's won big, lost big, and come back to win even bigger this time round. Awesome guy, has a microbrewery, restores old motorcycles. Redditor 6, those poor kids, I'd skip the Christmas card. You don't want to end up back in her radar. Redditor 7, modern baking is destroying the economy. I know it's a typo but damn that made me snort. Op answer, Lamau I completely missed that one. Damn bakers and their delicious treats, they're destroying this country. Redditor 8, I'm glad it worked out for you and I don't agree with her cheating but I'd also be upset if my partner invested all his savings so I can see her side with that. Redditor 9, not sure why you're still giving her space rent-free? You got money now? Let that asset go, have a boat, or a private plane or something.